Hi there, and thank you for joining me for today's live reading of Reckless Heart by Jane Suen, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Mary Simmons glanced at the bridal bouquet on the coffee table, where she'd tossed it last night. The morning sun shined on the blush pink and white roses, the green gum leaf, and baby's breath, all wrapped and tied with flowing, silky ribbons. She sat down on the couch, sipping her first cup of coffee. Yesterday, she'd caught her sister Katie's bouquet. Her 28-year-old younger sister had practically shoved it in her hands, shouting "Mary" to get her attention. It was an easy catch, meant for her and her only. Mary had feigned surprise and delight while her heart did a sad flop. Did anyone notice? She was still single at the ripe old age of 29. Her chin quivered at the thought of turning 30, alone. Her eyes landed on the flowers again. She leaned in to smell the faint, sweet scent of the roses. Katie had a beautiful New Year's Day wedding. Mary was happy for the exuberant bride, now on her dream honeymoon with her new husband, Chase. Timmy, the kid Chase was raising after his brother Kenny and sister-in-law Darlene had died in a tragic car accident, was in the capable hands of Katie and Mary's mother, who'd moved into Katie's new home while the newlyweds were away on their trip. Life hadn't quite turned out the way Mary wanted. Where had the time flown? In the blink of an eye, she'd be in her 30s, and what was there to look forward to in her 40s? 50s? The days seemed to march faster now. She brooded as she flipped another page on her calendar. Startled by a shrill ringing, Mary glanced at her cell and saw it was Lori calling. She hesitated, pulling herself together before she answered her phone. "Hey, did I wake you?" Mary let out a half yawn. "Nope, but I'm still not wide awake yet. How come you're so chipper this early?" "I'm an early riser." "Why are you bugging me?" "Well, this is my first call, now that we're related." "We are?" "Yes," Lori chuckled, "since my cousin married your sister." So this makes you what? My sister Katie is your cousin-in-law?" Mary mumbled. "Right, my cousin's wife. What does that make you?" "Darn, I need more caffeine. I can't think straight. What are we?" "I think maybe kin of some sort. Don't ask me to explain it." "I won't," Mary said, breaking into a laugh. "Ha, you called this morning to ask me this?" "Actually, no," Lori said. "I called to ask if you've had breakfast yet. Do you have plans?" Mary sighed. Oh yeah, like she had her appointment book filled. If Lori had asked her over a month ago, she would have answered, "Yes, Jim and I." The words would have automatically rolled out without any effort on her part to link them together. But Jim, once her longtime boyfriend, was now her ex-boyfriend. It felt strange, a part of her life gone, leaving his name out in conversations, returning his stuff, removing all traces of him from her place, deleting his photos from her social media where he had a presence. "No," she said firmly, "no plans." "We'll go eat breakfast," Lori said, then prodded cheerfully. "Let's go. It'll be fun, I promise." "What about Ryan?" Lori laughed. "You mean, why am I leaving my husband alone?" "Well, you're practically still newlyweds. You just got married last year." "Ryan is a big boy. I love that he's so understanding and knows when to butt out," Lori giggled. "Besides, he knows I'll make it up to him." "Uh-huh, and I won't ask how. Ryan is a lucky guy." Mary laughed, knowing also what an easygoing guy he was. "Don't I know it? Or maybe I'm the lucky one," Lori said. "Meet you at the diner in 30 minutes, okay?" "Sure," Mary tapped the red end button. The most recent calls from Jim were still logged on the call list. She took a moment to reflect. They had good memories, a few great ones, but she knew they'd reach the end long before the words were uttered, finalizing the split. Lori was right. She needed to get out and have some fun. Chapter 2. Mary arrived at the diner right on time. She stomped the snow off her shoes and went inside, standing at the entrance to survey the room. The dining room was in full swing with the breakfast crowd. People were laughing and talking over the clinking of glasses and tableware, and some screaming kid was throwing a tantrum, his shrill cry heard over the din as the waitresses belted out their orders and bells dinged when the food was ready. She spotted Lori already seated at a table, a glass of water in front of her and another one placed across the table. She made her way over, skirting coat-laden chairs in the way. Mary had gotten to know Lori when she served as maid of honor, and Lori was matron of honor at Katie's wedding. Lori had cooked up this thing about having a plus one at her wedding last year, and thanks to her planning and her kind-hearted meddling, Katie and Chase became each other's plus ones then, and now they were married and on their honeymoon. Jim had served as Chase's best man, although he and Mary had broken off their relationship a month before Katie and Chase's wedding. Their split had been amicable and without hostility. Despite a lingering sadness, Mary put up a cheery, good front and kept on friendly terms with him during the big day. Lori looked up from her menu and caught the sight of her friend, and her smile beamed in welcome across her fresh scrubbed, makeup-free face. Good morning. Mary slid into the seat and gave as cheerful a greeting as she could muster. She knew she didn't fool anyone, least of all Lori. I've ordered coffee for us, Lori said, eyes twinkling. Mary nodded gratefully as the waitress approached with 2 steaming mugs of the house brand coffee. They ordered quickly, eggs and buttered toast for Mary and blueberry pancakes for Lori. Mary grasped the warm mug with both hands and sipped the dark brew. It was bitter and just what she needed now, what she thirsted for. Not the light, flavored brand that was usually her favorite. She let out a satisfied sigh and set the mug down. No cream or sugar? Lori asked as she flicked a sugar packet, tore it open, and poured the contents into her drink. I like it black, Mary said. She craved the caffeine, and drinking coffee always made her feel more alert and energetic. The waitress returned with their order, carrying 2 plates of food and a bottle of syrup, and set them down on the table. After she left, Mary took a bite of her buttered toast, crunchy on the outside but soggy and soaked with melted butter in the center. She licked around the edges, catching clumps of sweet butter clinging to the crust in semi-solid form. She watched as Lori drizzled blueberry syrup over the stack of pancakes. She wondered if Lori felt sorry for her after the split with Jim. Why did she ask her out? Mary was a big girl. She didn't want Lori's or anyone else's pity. Well, hello, ladies, a man's voice said. At the sound of the rich, masculine voice, Mary froze in embarrassment, acutely aware of the butter dripping from her lips as she recognized him. She knew the handsome, dark-haired man standing at their table. He had looked amazing yesterday at Katie's wedding. Well-dressed, sophisticated, and sleek in his finely tailored suit. Today he had on a casual, russet tan-colored sweater and jeans, and his thick, carefully groomed hair was tousled this morning. Mary wiped away the yellow droplet on her chin and managed a greeting. Hi, Brad. Lori was smiling. Hey, Brad, would you like to join us? Sure, thanks. He pulled back a chair and took his seat, leaving enough room to stretch his long legs. They had been in the same year in school and had been in classes together. Katie was a year younger and for a brief period had a crush on Brad when they were kids. Mary had seen Brad at Katie's wedding and reception, although he'd been seated at another table. The year before, he'd attended Lori's wedding. She remembered he had asked Katie to dance with him that evening, which didn't sit well with Chase. She thought Brad hadn't come alone then. He was with another woman, a blonde she didn't recognize. You know Mary, Lori said, stating the obvious, even though she knew. Yes, since elementary school, Brad said. Mary felt his stare, bold and with a glint of amusement, as he directed his attention to her. The Brad she knew in school was a lanky kid, shy and sensitive. Mary slid a side glance at this gorgeous, confident man sitting at their table. She leaned over to reach for her glass of water, close enough to catch his light, manly scent. Her hand shook. Why was she acting like a silly schoolgirl? She hurried to take a quick sip of water, spilling a few drops over the rim. Mary gave a polite smile. They were friends in school, had grown up together, and were classmates. Did Brad remember when they were kids? The lazy, hot summer days, the silly games they played after school, the worn-out blue book bags they dutifully lugged to classes and back home, their mad dashes to the playground at recess. Now look at us, all grown up and almost middle-aged, Lori said. Hey, speak for yourself, Mary snorted and pretended to be shocked. Lori was her age, but she acted like a mother hen sometimes. Everybody knew that about her, and nobody minded. The waitress showed up with a glass of water and a set of tableware for Brad. He ordered quickly, eggs, hash brown, a biscuit, and coffee. She listened to the grown-up Brad, his voice smooth and mature like a fine bottle of wine that had aged well. He had left their small town a boy and came back a man. A real man. So, how long are you here this time? Lori was asking him, a shade of admonishment in her voice. He'd left right after her wedding last year. I'll be staying for one more day. Lori stared at him, chewing her lip. You have plans? He shifted in his chair and leaned back. I've been working on this for a while now, something I've wanted to do. Brad raised his eyes, taking a thoughtful pause before he continued. But I need to do it right. What is it? Lori pressed. A new project, a tiny home community. He paused as he made eye contact with the two women. You'll build it? Mary asked. She had heard Brad was in the construction business. Yes, in the city where I live. Mary couldn't help noticing that Brad's eyes sparkled, and the look on his face was intense and purposeful. It radiated energy. Specifics. Oh, do tell, Lori said. He smiled at her and continued. I envision a community of eco-friendly tiny homes with green space, a community garden, and he lifted an eyebrow. Well, maybe walking trails, a greenhouse, and a picnic area. It sounds wonderful, Lori exclaimed, clasping her hands together. You have a strategy? Mary asked. Yes, I'll manage the budget and run the business. I've developed a plan and put together an experienced team of managers and people to bring this project to life. There's a lot of preparation involved in getting started. Brad grinned, the smile lines deepening around the corners of his eyes. Chapter 3. Brad eyed the plateful of steaming food set in front of him. Tender, perfectly scrambled eggs piled next to greasy hash browns, homemade biscuits, and thick pats of butter on the side. The waitress filled his mug of coffee before she left. Ladies? He asked. Don't mind us. We ate already, Lori said. He put a fork in the eggs and got down to business. Brad hadn't expected to see both women at the diner this morning. He'd had a brief conversation with Lori at Katie's wedding, and she teased him about not spending enough time here when he was in town. He said he wasn't leaving right away this time. Then she talked him into breakfast and said she'd let him make it up to her. It would be almost like old times when they'd hung out together, she had said. It was a surprise to see Mary at breakfast. He heard about her breakup with Jim. They'd been together for so long, everyone had assumed they'd gotten married. He and Jim had been close years ago, before Mary. Each time Brad received a wedding invitation, he'd wonder if it'd be Mary's turn soon. When Lori and Ryan married last year, he remembered the wedding reception. Mary jumping out of her chair, arms outstretched to hug him in an exuberant greeting. Jim was next to her, but Brad had asked Katie to dance, as he knew she was unattached. Then Katie and Chase rekindled their relationship after they danced at Lori's wedding, and they got married yesterday. Lori's phone rang and she took the call. He guessed it was Ryan from the way she cooed and giggled. I've got to go. Lori ended the call and scraped back her chair. She smiled and turned to Mary. You'll stay here with Brad? Sure, Mary said, as Lori hurriedly pulled on her coat, snatched her purse, and left. The waitress approached with refills for their coffee and cleared Lori's plate at the table. Brad was now alone with Mary and found himself suddenly timid and tongue-tied. Why was it easier when there were three of them? He had run high-stakes meetings efficiently and smoothly. He had brought his adversaries down and outwitted them. He was known for his quick wit and smart comebacks, never at a loss for words. Until now, sitting next to Mary. He peered intently into his half-full mug, studying it like it was the most interesting thing in the world. And he could not pull his eyes away. She broke the silence. Are you okay? He raised his head and stared at her, but he didn't answer. You okay? He watched her lips move and form the question again. He cleared his throat and downed the rest of his coffee in one gulp. Then he set the mug down. I'm glad you're here, he blurted out without thinking. She was smiling now, a shine in her eyes. Her face was like an open book, transparent and without guile. She wasn't playing games. He knew she heard him and responded honestly. He didn't have to guess. He noticed her thick eyelashes, soft brown eyes, the perfectly shaped lips with a rounded cupid's bow, and her thick, chestnut brown hair pulled back in a clip, exposing her slender neck. He felt an urge to protect her, to keep her safe, and selfishly, to keep her away from other men. Whoa, where did that thought pop out from? Brad had never allowed himself to think this way. Maybe because she hadn't been his. He'd pushed away any hope, until now.